Matt Canavan is the Minister for Northern Australia and an LNP Senator for Queensland. In a previous life, he was an economist for the Productivity Commission. He joins me now from Rockhampton. Matt Canavan, thanks for your time. What's the best thing that government can do to address the youth unemployment problem in this country?
Well, there are a few things government can do, David, and thanks for having me on. Principally, our prime job is to provide the right infrastructure, the right business-friendly policies for the private sector to get on with businesses and employ people. Most of the jobs, of course, in Townsville and all across regional areas are going to come through private businesses, not the government employing people directly. So that should be our focus. Now, in Townsville in particular, we recognise the challenges and problems it faces. That's why we've announced $250 million of infrastructure during the election, including an upgrade of their port there for economic infrastructure. It's why we've got a long-term Northern Australian agenda as well. We recognise the upheaval that Townsville and North Queensland is going through, where I am right now. It's a tough time coming off the mining boom, but we've been through tough times as country before. We've particularly got a very bright future here in North Queensland with lots of opportunities in agriculture, in tourism and still in mining as well. And the policies we've got in place help support those industries by building new infrastructure and by supporting local businesses as well.
You mentioned that $250 million for Townsville specifically. The big headline during the election campaign was for the stadium, $100 million to build a new stadium up there. 1,600 jobs created during that project, but as I understand it, 31 jobs once the construction phase is over. Is that really the best way to spend taxpayer dollars?
Well, that's according to one study, David. When we announced the stadium, it was part of a city deal for the whole of Townsville. That particular project, the stadium, is primarily about urban renewal for Townsville. So we certainly plan for it not just to be about football, but be about new restaurants, new areas for people to meet and greet there, new jobs for the very young people that you had in your story before. And also we've announced $150 million for the port in Townsville, which is about getting better access for the port, the rail line upgrades that are needed to get better access to the port. That will too open up land in Townsville, particularly for logistics and other opportunities for the city and the wider region.
More broadly, when can we expect the government's $5 billion Northern Australia infrastructure facility or fund to start actually flowing?
Well, when we announced that, we did announce it last year as the program indicated, but when we announced it, we said it would be up and running by July 1 this year, and it was up and running by July 1 this year. That was only a couple of months ago, of course. They have held board meetings now, the board of the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility. There are a number of good projects that are going forward to that facility, and recently I've been speaking to people about projects in Townsville that might be able to come forward for it as well. So that is on track, but that is something that will take some time to roll out those large-scale infrastructure projects, and that's why during the election we announced a $30 million jobs package for the Townsville region, for the Bowen Basin region, the region that's been hit by the mining boom, to help small businesses diversify, to go into new areas of business, to try and employ young people. We realise we need a mix of policies here, short, medium and long term, to respond to these challenges and also take the opportunities that North Queensland has.
You've long been an advocate for the Adani coal mine. Has it, as far as you're aware, applied for some of that public assistance through NAIF?
Well, my understanding is they've been in discussions with the Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility. It's not really a typical government-run program where you make a formal application, if you like, David. It's a commercially oriented venture where you, as a proponent or investor, can go and ask and discuss your plans.
But should public funds be used, do you think, to help get a coal mine, such a controversial coal mine, off the ground?
Well, certainly the government won't be providing funds for a coal mine as such. Whether any related infrastructure would be provided with funding under the Northern Australian Infrastructure Facility as an infrastructure facility. Well, that's a matter for the independent board. The Parliament only a couple of months ago established a board to be independent in this space to look at these projects. They will make their recommendations in due course, if indeed any are made on this particular project. I think it's too early to tell at this stage. But this is also
your resources minister, though. I mean, would you ever block a loan that was offered to Adani. That's what the Senate moved a motion just a couple of weeks ago, urging the government not to support such a mine.
Well, I'm certainly not going to preempt any decision of the independent board, David. That's sort of the definition of independence. I don't think it's appropriate for me as the Minister to do so. I'll judge any particular project or proposal on its merits as it comes forward, as I'm meant to do, along with the government as well. This particular proposal was also put forward to us by the Queensland State Government last year. As I say, those discussions are continuing, but there's not much more to add at this stage. About
30% of people in Northern Australia are Indigenous, from the figures that I've seen most recently, and they're enormously, as you know, overrepresented in unemployment numbers. Yet closing the gap and the Northern Australia policy seem to be operating in isolation of each other, or at least viewed largely separately. Should they be issues that the government is viewing in tandem with each other?
Well, certainly in some aspects there should be, David. It hasn't received the same high profile as some of the infrastructure projects we've announced under the Northern Australian agenda. But the very first chapter of the white paper we released on Northern Development talks about Indigenous land and native title issues in particular. We cannot develop the North without unlocking the value that exists in native title, given how much it covers Northern Australia. And we've got an ambitious reform agenda there to help traditional owners develop new and innovative ways of creating value with that title ownership, and also settling native title claims over the next decade. So that's a complex reform proposal. It'll take time to deliver, but you're absolutely right to identify that developing the North must include our first Australians very much at its core. If it doesn't, we will have failed. But
we're almost
right
out of time, and I did just want to get to one more issue, and that is the proposed and then delayed backpacker tax that would tax foreigners at 32.5% from the first dollar earned. When can we expect a decision on this, and what sort of outcome do you think would work for Northern Australia? Are we going to see some exemptions for agriculture and tourism, for example?
Well, we've certainly listened to the concerns of the industry. That's why we put this off for 6 months. We are doing a review right now, listening to people. We've said that review will be completed by November. I would certainly like to see that completed as soon as possible. I know the industry would, but this is a complex area. It's an area that the industry itself recognises that we need to change the taxation arrangements. The current arrangements, in effect, mean that many backpackers pay no tax, even though they did before 2012, before the tax-free threshold was changed. And I don't think it's right that any workers in this country, be they domestic or foreign, don't pay tax to contribute to our public services. That needs to change. So it is complex to design that change. We recognise that the tax that was introduced has created a lot of concerns, and that's why we're holding this review, and we'll get back in very short form.
Look forward to it. Thanks for your time. We'll have to leave it there. Matt Canavan, thanks for that.